Module 5, Turn Obstacles into Opportunities. How do you respond to obstacles in your life? Do you stop at the first sign of an obstacle, or do you keep pushing ahead? There's a third option too, you know. There may be some opportunities hiding in those obstacles. You just have to be looking for them. Nick has certainly faced his share of obstacles in his life, which is why his perspective on how to turn them into opportunities is so valuable. Here are a few thoughts Nick will share with us in this module. He'll tell the story of how he began his speaking career and the many obstacles he faced along the way. He'll show us how to not only overcome obstacles, but how to actually take advantage of them. And he'll walk us through how to break down the barriers in our lives. You're going to get so much out of this module. Here's Module 5, Turn Obstacles into Opportunities.
Life. It's full with obstacles, or at least situations that we perceive to be obstacles. I know my life has been filled with them, and I'm sure yours has too. You may be looking at me and listening to my stories and think, well, Nick, you've overcome way more obstacles than just about anyone else ever. But that's not true. You also face obstacles constantly in your life, and everyone does. All of our obstacles may be different and of varying degrees, but we all face obstacles. Here's what I've learned though. There are very few things in life that are absolute obstacles or impossible to overcome. In fact, I don't believe obstacles are just something you must endure. I actually think obstacles are opportunities. Yes, I look for opportunity in every obstacle I face, and I think you'd be shocked at just how often I find opportunities in them. That's exactly what I want to show you how to do. One of my favorite stories to share with any crowd is how I became a speaker. It's a story jam-packed with obstacles, but it's a story that has such a happy and fulfilling ending. I first had it in my mind that I may want to be a speaker when I was 13 years old. Right away, my parents had some major hesitations about that. They were worried about me setting such a lofty goal, fearing there was no way for me to accomplish it in my life. My mom had some very good questions. Nick, do you even know how to be a speaker? And I'm like, no. She said, do you even know another speaker that's successful and even just making a living from it? No. Have you ever thought of how to get an invitation to speak? And I'm like, no. Do you have any invitations? No. Are they going to pay you, Nick? I don't know. What are you going to speak about exactly? And how are you going to deliver it in a different way as everyone else? Man, I'm telling you, the questions were endless, and rightfully so. I really didn't have many answers, but I knew I wanted to speak. I felt it. When I told her that I wanted to speak about bullying, she said, there's already been people who've spoken about bullying, Nick. And she was right about that. But I thought to myself, well, there's still bullying though, isn't there? And maybe I'll be the one who can actually make a difference. Maybe my perspective and unique outlook and circumstances can help me communicate it in a way that others can't. There's an important lesson in that. When you realize why you do what you do, and you realize that you are uniquely equipped to do it, everything changes. It turns you into a powerful force for good. It's not that my parents didn't want me to have a career and be productive and enjoy my work. They were very encouraging. I tell you, when I was 6 years old, my dad said, actually, Nick, you have no arms and legs, but you have a brain. Use your brain. Start a business in accounting or financial planning. Become a stockbroker. Start a business, Nick, where your employees can be your hands and feet. It was great advice. Of course, I realized I also had a voice and a heart, and I wanted to share my heart with others as a speaker. My parents continued to push me very hard into mathematics, and I actually excelled in math all the way through school. It was always my strongest subject, and that was a great thing for me, even though I felt it was hard at the time. My goal was to still be a speaker. Meanwhile, my parents still said, "Nick, even though you have a speaking dream, make sure you finish school as a backup plan. Once you do that, then you can go try do whatever you want." Honestly, it was very hard for my parents to see a future for me as a speaker. The odds were stacked against me. This time, the obstacles seemed insurmountable. My parents were always my biggest fans and biggest encouragers, but it was actually, believe it or not, the janitor at my high school who really fueled my initial thoughts at the very beginning of thinking of being a speaker. He was the first person to look at me and say, "You, Nick, are gonna be a speaker." And even though it had been that thought at 13 years old, I just simply looked at him and said, "What? You're crazy." After I rejected him for 3 months at the invitation of him organizing a mini speech, I finally gave in and spoke in front of 5 or 6 students, and I was extremely nervous. My palms were sweaty. And yet, as I spoke, I saw students crying. 2 years later, I spoke and a girl came up to me, hugged and cried on my shoulder, and she said, "No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am." I was in shock. I was overcome with the emotion I felt and the emotions everyone else was feeling. It made me wonder how many other children and teenagers have never been told by their parents that they're loved or that they're beautiful. I know if my parents had never told me those two things, I wouldn't be who I am today, and I actually probably wouldn't be here. Because of my attempted suicide, I nearly disappeared off the face of this planet, and the only thing that stopped me from going through with that suicide was actually the love of my parents, and I didn't want to leave them with that pain. Right there and then, in front of that girl, I had that moment when I realized, wow, I really have something to look forward to. I have purpose, a reason. I can help other people. I was reminded right there of that man, Reggie Dabbs, who came to my school and spoke in front of all of us when I was 13 years old. I've written about him in my books. Reggie is a powerful speaker who had overcome so many obstacles in his life, starting with being the child of a prostitute. It was during this time that I really began to form these dreams of speaking as a career, and I looked at him and thought, wow, what a cool job. He flew over here from America, speaks in front of rooms full of teenagers, and gets paid to give hope. That resonated with me in a profound way. That became my why, to help people and actually make a difference. I didn't just want to become a speaker, I wanted to be a good one. I wanted to hone my craft and be a highly sought after speaker. I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to be paid well for it so I could be financially independent. I didn't ignore my parents' advice though. I did go on to university, receive my degrees in accounting and financial planning, and I'm so glad that I did. What I've learned in that process has served me very well, even though I haven't made a career of it. My dad also taught me to be smart with my money, even though he and mum never had too many investments in their life. I wanted to be very intentional about managing my finances and my investments. I knew I was going to have certain expenses that others don't have, like a caregiver, wheelchairs, and things like that. I didn't see speaking as a business yet, but as I developed that passion and as more and more people asked me to speak, I found a mentor who could coach me on speaking. His name, John Hyman, the husband of my teacher's aide at high school. And later I found out he was a speaker. It was awesome to meet with him as he believed in me, and he always kept on saying, Nick, you're going to publish a book before I do, and you're going to be on stages around the world and become a famous speaker before I do. And I'm like, what? You're my coach. How can you be telling me that? But it was awesome as he helped me set the foundational pillars that I did not have as a young speaker. He taught me to study other speakers and books and verbiage and presentation skills. He taught me about volume, pace, and pitch, and much more. And as I would meet with him in my house, I will never forget my parents sometimes walking by and asking him, "Hey John, you really think he's gonna someday be a speaker?" And John was quick to answer, "Yep, he certainly will." That totally boosted my confidence in exponential ways. When you have someone who believes in you, that's a big, big thing. If you don't have somebody, then believe in yourself and start making friends around you that you look up to push you toward that goal. Of course, making a living as a speaker is not easy for anyone. It's a career path that's surrounded by obstacles at every turn. But I chose to turn those obstacles into opportunities for me. It's not about having a mindset of saying, well, I'm bigger than any obstacle I'll ever face. 'Cause you're not. Come on, you're not bigger than the obstacles in your life. But you can see how obstacles can be overcome in your life. I call it gaining altitude. You gain a new perspective, which allows you to grow in your education and your experiences with every obstacle and even every failure. It's just like taking on the perspective that obstacles are actually opportunities. I faced many obstacles as I started my speaking career. My parents were not wrong in asking all the questions they did, and I know that. I struggled though through addressing every single one of them, and I had to. First of all, I wasn't a great communicator. I fumbled on my words. I didn't convey confidence. My knees were shaking. I was worried about what people's reactions would be. Actually, I over-dramatized my humor and my ability to laugh at myself early on to the point of it being awkward for others. I wanted people to be okay with seeing a man without limbs who could laugh at himself, but in the process, I think I just made it more difficult for them. However, I know there was no way of learning those lessons without failing at them first. Similarly, I had never marketed anything in my life, let alone my own speaking, which I know I wasn't good at. I had to practice it over and over. I called many schools to get my career started, and so many of them actually said no. But every time I got a no, I got better and better and better at asking and marketing myself. Sometimes I consciously learned something and tried a different approach the next time. More times than not, I wasn't conscious of what was happening, but in the repetition and in the persistence, I naturally got better at it. I finally got my first speaking engagement, and after that, then other schools heard about me and they invited me to speak at their school. Fast forward to now, and we've received over 35,000 invitations for me to speak around the world. I've been to more than 70 countries on 3,000 stages and on TV to over 1.5 billion people worldwide. But if I had stopped when I called the first 10 or 20 or even 50 schools who said no, none of that would have ever happened. These obstacles became opportunities because they gave me the opportunity to train myself, to learn through mistakes, failures, repetition, and continuous interaction. It was an essential step in my development. Like I said at the beginning, I believe very few obstacles are impossible to change and overcome. Virtually every obstacle in your life can become an opportunity if you're open to it. You have to be open to it though, to seeing your obstacles change into something you can actually take advantage of. For one, if you can overcome obstacles that others aren't willing to overcome, then you've thinned out the pack and helped yourself stand out even more. You've not only conquered an obstacle personally, but you've also used it as a way to increase your own exclusivity by the fact that everyone else isn't willing to do it. Have you ever thought of that? You also have to position yourself to take advantage of these opportunities when they come up. If you remember, I call these X factors. Those positive unknowns that pop up in life that, if you can act on them, can become a major pivot point in your life. You'll be amazed at the opportunities that appear when you're actually on the lookout for them. Where other people will see roadblocks, you'll see a runway, baby. To turn obstacles into opportunities and to truly succeed, you must be willing to fail. I have never met a single successful person who hasn't been willing to fail in the process. Of course, the idea of failing on its own isn't fun at all. But when you can be clear on why you're doing what you're doing and where it's taken you, then you're willing to face the obstacles, to experience the rejections, to make the mistakes that will get you closer to where you want to be. When you can so clearly see what will make you happy and you're committed to making it happen, you're ready to fall down if necessary on the way. Let me share with you another obstacle of mine. It was always a dream of mine to drive a car. I had no idea how I would do that, and this was way back in the 90s. We knew at that time technology was advancing, but who would have ever thought that with my little foot, I actually could drive a car at 35 to 40 miles an hour, just like everyone else on a road filled with cars. I never thought that this would actually happen. I wanted it to be possible. I hoped that it would be possible, and I knew I would have to be patient to get there. But it was my biggest dream. I was determined I was going to drive my own car. Well, I actually got that chance. We found a company in LA who specializes in disability access driving control systems. And guess what? They put me in one of their modified cars where I could drive with my foot all by myself. The steering wheel was actually attached to a rod that moved forwards and backwards like a plane. It had a throttle, braking system, some buttons for headlights and signals. And man, that steering wheel, it was so cool. And the whole experience, man, I'm like, wow! But believe it or not, even though it was my dream, I was actually really scared. I was scared when I tried. I was scared while I was driving. After I was driving, I was freaking out still. I'm like, oh my God, if I actually messed up or made a mistake, I really could have hurt somebody. I knew I didn't want to put myself in that position to hurt me or anyone. So my biggest teenage dream, my personal dream and goal to drive a car had to be totally reassessed. And I said, okay, I love the water. What if I get a boat that I could just drive on my own? That became the new dream. Why? Because this is how I could do something recreational with my family that I could drive myself and have a safe time doing it and never putting anyone in danger. I had to learn how to look at my life a little differently in so many ways. Take my marriage, for example. I can't even hold my wife's hand? Well, I've learned I don't need to hold my wife's hand. I just need to hold her heart. And you don't need hands for that. Well, how can I get from place to place? Well, I can't walk long distances, but now we've created a custom wheelchair that helps me get wherever I want, and we have a great team of caregivers who help me when I need help. And my favorite question that I had, how can I greet people? I can't shake their hands. I can't put my arms around them. Well, I just tell everyone, give me a hug. I am a hugging machine, and I did break the Guinness Book of World Records for 1,749 hugs in 1 hour. My arms fell off. You know what? I love hugging everyone. In this life, and all these things I'm talking about, it all requires me to be rather inventive, either in my thinking or in the things I create, but it works. Many times it gives me capabilities that others don't have, and that is an advantage to me. Sometimes it's inventions from the world around me that helps me in a huge way. When I was a child, I had no idea that smartphones, mobile devices, and even the internet were going to impact everyone's lives the way it has. Technology like this has certainly opened up new opportunities for me. It's one of those X factors I talk about. I'm not only constantly changing my own thinking and approaches, but I'm also constantly on the lookout for new technologies that can help me do things I never thought possible. It makes the look ahead quite exciting. The real key here is that your emotions and your fears and the voices in your head can sometimes get the best of you. They can make your obstacles seem insurmountable. Your job is reminding yourself that those things are part of a perception and not reality. You have to identify and even respect the obstacle, but you definitely don't have to accept it. You can choose to look for the opportunity in it instead. It's also important to remember your past obstacles and how they look to you now. Go back 6 months or even a year ago, maybe 2 years. Think of the obstacles that were looming in your life and staring you in the face. Do they seem so big now? Do they seem so insurmountable? Remember that the obstacles you face today will not be the same to you 6 months from now. Now, here's something I want you to do. I want you to think about your goals, and then I want you to write down 3 to 5 obstacles that come to mind that are standing between where you are now and where your goal is. Be very honest with yourself and even show it to your spouse or a friend and maybe have them do the exercise with you. You can be as detailed as you like. It may be a family goal, like go on a certain vacation you've always dreamed about, or it may be a financial goal. Whatever it is, please list it out. Now list out those obstacles and be equally as detailed about them. What seems insurmountable right now? What seems impossible to overcome? Here's the mindset shift I want you to take on. Look at these obstacles as barriers that need to be broken down, roadblocks that need to be busted through, or at the worst, they are legitimate obstacles that you need to find a detour around. For me, I had to change how I looked at obstacles if I wanted to have any kind of life at all. If I didn't continue to be persistent and resilient about my speaking engagements, I wouldn't be where I am. If I didn't put myself out there to develop friendships, I wouldn't have had friends. If I wasn't looking for my wife, I would not have found my wife. If I wasn't pursuing financial literacy and stability and independence, I would not have gotten where I am today. Am I exactly where I want to be? No. But that's part of the growing process of life. I am happy, though, with my life. I really am. So in your life, I want you to always think, rise above and don't allow the obstacles to keep you from reaching your goals. You don't need courage to win. You need courage to fail. Because the biggest thing about courage is you don't wait until you're not afraid. You do it even while you're afraid. That is courage. Develop your thinking and your decision processes. Learn and take yourself to the next level. This is not just a mindset that comes from thinking and reading and meditating. It's all about doing. It's about trying. It's about learning. It's about researching. It's about putting yourself out there. It's about exposing yourself to new things and just going for it. My hope is that you rise above your obstacles and you see the path through every one of those obstacles. See the opportunity that's waiting beyond those walls and go, rise above, and continue on through your journey.
How inspiring was that module? It's so easy for us to think that Nick has had to overcome obstacles that are so much bigger than anything we face in life. But his perspective on it all truly transcends the situation and gives us all principles to follow. That really motivates me to look for the opportunities in my own obstacles. So let's dig in a little more. Grab your worksheet and let's make our way through the main exercise at the end of the document. The breaking down roadblocks exercise is a really helpful one because it starts with the goals you wrote back down in Module 3. Pick a few of those goals and then pinpoint the obstacles that could get in your way to achieve them. After that, fill in the steps to take to break down those roadblocks. You'll be way ahead of the pack when you invest some thinking now in the challenges that could come later. Guess what? You only have one more module to complete. I'm sure you've had to overcome a few obstacles just to get to this point in the course, so congrats to you. We really appreciate it. It's people like you that inspire Nick and the entire team to keep pushing ahead as well, so thanks. You just completed Module 5, Turn Obstacles into Opportunities.